has ended at an appropriate time. There's a grey sky, a howling wind, and it's raining in Wellington here. So I'd imagine the England players are all on a plane heading back over to the UK and winter there. So we'll just a bit of a non-event, the last game really. So we might just gloss over that and look at more wider issues affecting the series. And clearly, the first thing that springs to mind is the New Zealand selection policy, given that Young and Santner came into the side and looked like they'd never been out the side really. And clearly, you don't have to be a genius to think that those two guys should have played more than the last test each. Any takeaways for you there, Mr. Littlejohn, as a huge New Zealand supporter?
Yeah, I mean, certainly Young was a massive blunder in my book. I mean, the lad was riding on a high, player of the series in India, looked very assured and very composed, and he's now 30 years old, so he's in his batting prime, Mr. Boyle, and a man who's in his batting prime and in red hot form, you just can't leave him out. And I think in that last game, New Zealand put on 100 and just over 100 for no loss in the first innings, and I think about 50 or so without loss in the second innings. And the New Zealand first wicket partnerships before that were extraordinarily low. Puts a lot of when you can get some sort of start like that, the rest of your batting lineup is able to function when they're not coming in against the new ball, and it takes a lot of pressure off. So New Zealand were able to benefit from that hugely. So Young for me was a massive. He should have been in after the first test, to be honest, or in at instead of probably Glenn Phillips was probably the one who I would have probably selected Young instead of, and then when Conway struggled, probably picked him ahead of Conway in the last test. But and Santner, again, bowler of the series in India, came in for the third test finally and, proved his worth. And then, Tim's been a great player, but he clearly is a shadow of his former self and shouldn't have played the cricket he did in this series. He should have been managed through a bit more. Yes. We'll leave it there, though.
Well, I'll beg. Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose that I thought it was good that Tim got to do what he got to do, but maybe that's just being a bit gloriously cute and sentimental, perhaps. But I think Santner's interesting. I mean, he's been made the white ball captain, I noticed yesterday, and he's obviously not. His ability's never been in question in the white ball arena, but it has strangely in the red ball arena, which is odd because I mean, he is a good bowler and he bowls very tidily. It's rarely you go to the game and think, God, Santner got smashed all over the place. He's a bit tight. And his batting just looked very, very sound. What he was doing. I mean, he's always been able to hit the ball. So hopefully he can really kind of kick on in the red ball game now, because I think selecting sort of part-time, semi-good spinners, it's not going to work against the quality of batting India, Australia, England batsmen. They're just going to smash somebody like that out the attack. I think you need to play a proper spin bowler.
Yeah. Well, I'd argue, I totally get it. Early in his career, Mitch was a stopgap spinner who could bat. There's no doubt about that. But again, it's all about in my opinion, time in the saddle. You know, he's 32. He's in the prime of his cricketing life. He's got 12 years of first-class cricket behind him, and he's clearly an improved bowler. You know, he's not the bowler he was in Test cricket 5-6 years ago. He's a much better bowler than that. And his batting's come on, and, you know, he's now experienced. He's a leader in the team. And to me, now, on the evidence of the Indian series, and there were signs of it previously, you know, he's a must-have in the side, you know, and it's great to have options like him and Glenn Phillips, who can bowl. He didn't get many opportunities in this series, and even Michael Bracewell, you know, he's not to be forgotten either. So it's great to have those options, but, you know, yeah, good on Mitchell for his white ball captaincy. He's always been a very good white ball bowler. In my opinion, he's always struggled to come back from playing white ball cricket, where he tends to bowl flatter and shorter, to bowling Test cricket, where he bowls slower, fuller, with more loop. You know, he's never been able to transition that well between the two. But again, now he's experienced and all that sort of stuff. It's much easier for him.
Yeah, it certainly looked that way for him in the Test, and I guess it helps as a spin bowler in the last dig you're bowling and you set them 650.
Yeah, well, exactly.
You know, that makes a big difference. But one thing that's levelled against him at times as well, you know, he doesn't take wickets in the Plunket Shield, New Zealand domestic cricket, and blah, blah, blah. But not many spinners do really take loads of wickets in the Plunket Shield. So we'll maybe, having put the New Zealand selection to rights, we'll maybe move on in response to one of our regular Northern Hemisphere followers chipping in with an interesting view as regards the fact that a lot of Test matches now go nowhere near lasting the 5 days, and the gentleman in question is from the sort of East Lancashire, possibly Northeast Lancashire, but I maybe need to be careful there, because Northeast Lancashire, you're getting into Burnley territory, and that really is the enemy as far as this individual is concerned. But just making a really good point that, well, the cricket's great, it's entertaining. Does it actually matter if it finishes at lunch on day 3 or at lunch on day 4 or at tea on day 4? Any thoughts there?
Well, I don't think it does. I agree wholeheartedly with that listener. I think he's obviously a very scholarly and learned man. I don't think at all. I think it just makes for very positive, exciting cricket, and there's no doubt white ball cricket has helped with that. You know, there's been discussion of tests being made into 4-day affairs. I would not support that at all. I think you've got to preserve the ethos of the game down through the ages. I mean, there'll still be occasions where the game does go into day 5. I was sitting with an English chap who was actually my employer when I last played cricket in England and in South Derbyshire there. And he was grizzling a little bit because New Zealand were, allegedly batting too long in the second innings and setting England too many runs and not making a game of it. And, well, the game is a 5-day game, and when you bowl the opposition out for 140 in the first innings, well, you earn the right to bat for a long period of time if you're good enough. And, not many sides do. So, that's it. And it's a 5-day game, but it's great if it's all action for 3 days. Well, that's fine in my book. I agree.
Yeah, no, I think I've kind of maybe moved my purist's view on that aspect of it. And I think the other beauty of it staying as a 5-day game is if weather intervenes, there's still the option to get a result, I mean, if you go to 4 days and weather intervenes, you're not necessarily playing the game out, as it
Yeah.
potentially.
And I like your, you made a comment about, spinners in New Zealand don't get many wickets in the Plunket Shield, which is a 4-day game. If you stick to a 5-day game, then there's always the potential for spinners to play a much bigger role on days 4 and 5, where wickets do fall in a hurry. And next year in the Ashes, hopefully, we'll see some tests going that long. So it keeps the spinners in the game, and I'm a big fan of keeping spinners encouraged. Speeds the game up,
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Well, unless there's any parting right hooks from you there, Mr. Littlejohn, we'll
No, I think we've got to say well done to the English. Thoroughly deserved it. As a diehard New Zealand fan, I just keep harking back to those 8 drop catches that went down in the English first innings in the first test. Had New Zealand hung on to, I don't know, even half of those, would have been a very different looking series. I was a bit disappointed that each of the 3 games was quite one-sided. The first 2 to England, the last one to New Zealand, and that, it was a much anticipated series, and it just fell a little flat from that point of view. Looking forward to the Ashes for next year for England. Look, I think they'll have the batting. I think they'll have the batting to compete. I'm not sure they've got the bowling to compete. Just as a complete neutral, that might ruffle a few Northern Hemisphere feathers. But on those hard decks over in Australia, I'm not sure. The Cass is one. He'll do okay over there, Bryden Cass. But the other couple that were out there, I'm not sure. Wokes and Atkinson's a good little 3rd or 4th seamer over there and a good bat. But I think they'll need Jofra Archer or Mark Wood or someone like that over there to provide a bit of firepower. I think that they will be really important, at least one of those playing. Anyway.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting that the just announced their A squad, which is playing in Australia in January, and Bashir is actually going on that squad to get experience of bowling, which is a good move, but I think he certainly needs it looking at some of the stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he's the other one in that bowling attack that worries me from an English point of view. I'm not sure he's the answer just yet. I'd be far more comfortable if I was English seeing Jack Leach play, but, that's another story.
Leach is no mug with a bat. I mean,
no.
He obviously scored the best 1 not out in the history of the game, and that Headingley in 2019.
No, we better wrap it up, Mr. Boyle.
Okay, the time guillotine's about to fall on us. Okay, very good.
Well, it's been great chatting through the series. A couple of yourself being independent, and thanks for your time.
Okay, very good. Thank you as well.
All right, there we are. We'll stop. I had to
Did we get inside the time limit?
Well, I think we were probably about 14 and a half minutes there, which...
Tightish,
yeah, got a little...